everyone, it's John from WoTUp, and welcome back to another video. Yes, we're going to do something just a little bit different today. A few people have asked me if I'm going to cover Lord of the Rings on the channel, and I'm not. But there is something else here. So what I'm going to do tonight is a little bit different. I'm going to talk about the Lord of the Rings, the marketing, and how much money they're putting behind that particular property versus what they did for Wheel of Time. And there's a pretty big difference. You can definitely tell who Amazon's favorite child is. But we're going to talk about that tonight in this video. Now, I debated pretty heavily whether or not I was actually going to cover the Lord of the Rings and any other things on the channel here. And I decided against it mainly because WoTUp is a Wheel of Time channel. I consider myself an expert in all things Wheel of Time, and people come here for news, leaks, all kinds of different stuff, and I didn't want to mess that up. However, I do like other fantasy, and there are some other really big fantasy shows out right now and coming out, like Vox Machina, Lord of the Rings, Witcher, so on and so forth, see over on Apple Plus, that I do watch and I do really enjoy. So I decided I'd make a second channel. That's my big announcement tonight. There is a second channel out now. It's called Chronicles of WoTUp. The link to it is down below in the description box. Head over there and subscribe if you want to hear fantasy news and my thoughts on everything else fantasy. Now, I'm not touching the written works of any of these properties. I'm only going to talk about the visual mediums, so anything that's going out in the theaters or streaming services or on television for pretty much almost any fantasy project, you're going to see news and breakdowns of it over there. Now, some of the stuff I cover may be a little old or dated, but I'm also going to cover all of the breaking news for everything coming out, including Lord of the Rings going forth. So, if you like that sort of thing, head over there and subscribe. And if you don't like that sort of thing and you're here just for the Wheel of Time stuff, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I'm not going to lie to you. The bulk of my viewers are not subscribed right now, so please click that subscribe button and click the notification bell. It only takes a second to do so. Now, before we dive into the video, I normally give a spoiler warning, but I'm not going to do that today because really, realistically, we're talking about money, we're talking about favoritism, we're talking about sharing of resources, experience, a little bit about the Lord of the Rings, and a little bit about Wheel of Time, but nothing that's going to spoil the story. So if you haven't read the Wheel of Time books or read the Lord of the Rings books, if you haven't watched the show at all, and you're just new to the channel here, you don't know really what any of this is, don't worry about it. I'm not going to spoil anything, so no plots, no character arcs, none of that stuff. I won't spoil that during this video. Alright, so I mentioned that Amazon has a favorite child, and it's definitely not Wheel of Time. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's pretty much very obvious that they're putting all of their money, all of their time, all of their effort, pretty much everything they can behind the Lord of the Rings. And that's for a bunch of different reasons. And we'll get into those during this video. However, that doesn't mean that Wheel of Time isn't going to get a little bit of love. It's just getting a lot less love than the Lord of the Rings, if you catch my drift. Now, we're going to talk just a bit about the marketing, the money, Jeff Bezos himself. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. But I want to start with the announcement. Now, the announcement of the Rings of Power was with a teaser. Now, this teaser happened just about 3 weeks ago, I want to say. It wasn't very long ago at all. And it was all shot using practical effects where they poured the molten metal into this piece of wood right here. They made this sign. It was glorious. It was amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. And Jeff Bezos, Lex Luthor himself, and he doesn't play Lex Luthor, but you got to admit, he looks a lot like him. He announced it via a video that they shared on Twitter amongst a number of different places. Now, if you don't know who Jeff Bezos is, you're probably living under a rock, but he's the owner of Amazon and by proxy Prime Video. And the whole reason they're doing Lord of the Rings is because he really, really loves Lord of the Rings, and he super wanted them to acquire the property and make a show out of it because he wanted to see that. So much that he's willing to put up over $1 billion. That's what they've spent so far pretty much on this property, is $1 billion to acquire this, to film it, get it ready, to market it, and, basically have it prepared for September 2nd release of this year. That's a lot of money. Like, a lot of money. Now, go back to when they announced Wheel of Time officially. Pretty much everything they did for the Wheel of Time was done through a number of different spaces. The bulk of it, we'll say 90% of all marketing, pretty much everything they did was on Twitter, and it was through Twitter of Time. Now, there is a user, the Matt Coughlin. I've left a link to his Twitter account down below in the description box. He's credited for creating the Twitter of Time basically as a place for Wheel of Time fans to talk about Wheel of Time, make character accounts, kind of had fun, and it sort of morphed into what the show took over, if that makes any sense at all. So all of the marketing pretty much for the show, all of the interaction with the fans over the last 2 years before Wheel of Time actually aired, from the announcement to the airing, happened pretty much primarily through Twitter. Now, a couple of things were done differently here between Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. Lord of the Rings, they announced a lot of their cast very early, and it was official announcements. Wheel of Time gave us casting announcements here and there, a couple a month, usually on a Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month is what it initially was when Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, was doing the marketing himself on Twitter. They give us a couple of castings for characters that maybe weren't huge parts in the show, but had very important roles, along with all of the main characters. So when they first announced the show, we knew about Rosamund Pike, we knew about Daniel Henney, we knew about Rand, Egwene, Nynaeve, Perrin, and Mat. But then later on, they gave us the Cothins, they gave us some other Emond's Fielders, which they ended up having to change some of their names later on because they didn't keep them as those characters. But it was sort of a trickle marketing, so it was very slow. They gave us, spoon-fed us a couple things a month, but there was a lot of interaction between the producers, the executive producers, the actual Twitter account, which changed hands a few times, and the fans. And it was very personal, felt very private and very cool, sort of like an enclosed fandom that you'd see at JordanCon, or way back in the day for Wotmania or Dragon Mount, when Dragon Mount was first created with all the forums and news groups and stuff, Theoryland. That's what it felt like, and it was really neat, really cool to be part of that. But there wasn't a whole lot of marketing. That turned into a few teasers here and there, the making of this, the making of that, and they were created specifically for the fans and no one else. Essentially, they were released on Twitter. We got the making of Rand's sword, the making of Mat's dagger. We got a 3-second clip of Moraine. Very small things. They didn't take a whole lot for them to make or produce, but they did put it out, and they kept the core fandom engaged. Now, I want to stress this. The core fandom. Essentially, they took all the diehard fans that were on Twitter that talked about this every single day, and they were giving them little treats. Great for us, but it turned into sort of an echo chamber. No one else heard of the Wheel of Time. No one even knew the show was going to air until a few weeks beforehand, and even then, it really wasn't advertised that well. We got our first teaser trailer, our first true teaser trailer, 3 months out. That's not a lot. So 3 months out from the show, I have to look at my notes here. It was in September. So early September. So you have September, October, November, the show came out. September is when the teaser trailer came out. Gave us time to talk about it a little bit. And then in October, we got our full trailer. Now, they were both, in my opinion, really full trailers. They're over 2 minutes long a piece. And they were really cool. But you're talking 3 months and 1 month. In between there, we also got a poster. And this poster happened 1 month out. And we're going to talk about that abomination of a poster here in a second. It was really bad. But Lord of the Rings is a bit different. Jeff Bezos himself announced it. There was no closed fandom on Twitter. This was an announcement for everybody. The teaser went out. It was promoted everywhere. There's all kinds of stuff everywhere about it. They're putting a lot of money behind this. Now, here's the Wheel of Time poster we got a month before the show aired. It's not great. In fact, a lot of the fandom sort of made fun of it. Even some of the cast made fun of it. Producers, crew. It was not well received. It was not really well liked. It's not that it's a bad poster. It's just that after such a build-up for so long, people were expecting something really phenomenal and really cool. Now, don't get me wrong. A few weeks later, they did have a puzzle contest. This puzzle contest was done specifically just through Twitter and Instagram. Engaged, again, just the core fandom. We all got puzzles together. We made a new poster, and that new poster was much better. Way better than this thing right here. Yeah. But look at this. These are the Lord of the Rings posters. These things are out 8 months prior-ish to the actual show. And they are absolutely gorgeous. A lot of time, a lot of effort, just the sheer thought that went into every single one of these. And these were released, again, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much everywhere, all at the same time. And the core fans had a lot to say about them. There's a whole lot of argument and stuff about that, and I'll cover that in my Lord of the Rings videos over on the other channel. I don't want to get into that here. But, wow. Just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous posters. And I'm going to, kind of come around the horn here again. That's the actual title thing. Jeff Bezos again. And then, just a reminder, this is what we got. So, not so great, huh? Again, these are 8 months prior. The Lord of the Rings first trailer, and they're calling it a trailer, they're not calling it a teaser, they're calling it a full-on trailer, is dropping Super Bowl Sunday. That's today. That's insane. They're putting a ton of money. I don't know if you know how much money it is to get a spot in the Super Bowl for commercials, but they are crazy expensive. You're talking millions of dollars in some cases. So they're putting a ton of money in behind this marketing, and this is 8 months out. The show doesn't release till September 2nd. They're starting the marketing campaign now. Now, Wheel of Time got its first look, and this first look was in Entertainment Weekly, and we got our pictures of the Ammon Fielders and Lan and Moraine, amongst a couple of other pictures here and there, and that happened for us 3 months prior to the show dropping. Vanity Fair covered the first look for Lord of the Rings the other day, 8 months prior. Do you see sort of what's going on here? So it almost seems like the marketing for Wheel of Time was a complete afterthought. They really didn't give two shits about the marketing at all until a lot of the fans basically went, what's going on here? We haven't seen anything about it. There's no posters. There's no merchandise. There's nothing. And then it was an all-out marketing blitz before the end, and they were very proud of a couple of billboards they put up. A very nice one in London for the premiere. A subway wrapping here and there. Some, bus stop posters in a couple of different cities, but not many places. Now, I'm from Canada, for those of you who don't know, and up here, there was literally no advertising at all. We didn't get a premiere at all in Canada. We got nothing. And some of the huge cities like Toronto and Ottawa, they got a couple of billboards here and there, but there was almost no marketing in Canada. Most of the marketing was fully inside the US, a couple of places in the UK, as well as, even Prague where they filmed it, there wasn't much marketing there. They did almost no marketing. So when the show dropped last November 19th, very few people knew anything about it. That's just the way it was. I did my best by word of mouth, telling everyone I could, and no one had a clue that I talked to. Most of my viewers at the time were sending me messages saying that they were doing pretty much the same thing. Very few people knew about it unless they were already a huge fan. And even some fans were finding things on Facebook, finding things shared by their fans, and it was more of a viral marketing campaign that really wasn't that great, by the way, that people found out about the show. However, I do want to stress that the show did very, very well. But that's in spite of the marketing, not because of it. It was the #1 streaming show on Amazon last year. It broke a bunch of records. It did really, really, really well, whether you liked the show or hated it. It did fantastic. But again, the difference between doing fantastic and being absolutely legendary is usually a good marketing campaign, and it didn't have one. So now we're talking about Lord of the Rings. We're 8 months out, and we're getting all of this now. We're getting a Super Bowl trailer. We're getting posters and billboards everywhere. You're getting those gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous posters they put out. A huge spread in Vanity Fair with a bunch of different photos and information on it. 8 months out. This thing doesn't drop till September. That's a long ways away. And now we're going to talk about budget. So budget for Wheel of Time is estimated to be between 80 and 100 million for the first season. And that's a lot of money. Now, when we were talking about it, when we were talking about the budget, for 8 episodes, we were like, that's a ton of money. But you got to understand, that is everything from actor salaries to sets to VFX to everything. It's absolutely everything. 80 to 100 million dollars. That sounds amazing, but for an 8-hour movie, so to speak, it kind of fell a little short. And you could really tell when they hit episode 7 and 8, especially when they ran into difficulties, they didn't have the money to cover the difficulties. They had to make do with what they had, and they had to cover a few things, and it really hurt the final product. Now, Lord of the Rings is a bit different. They spent over $1 billion in this property, but that's not the budget for the first season. The budget for the first season is estimated to be about $462 million. Now, that's not including what they paid for the rights. That's not including anything else. That's just the first season budget. More than 4 times, 5 times the budget of Wheel of Time. Wow. That's a lot of money. That's an insane amount of money. Now, Jeff Bezos basically acquired Lord of the Rings property because he's a huge Lord of the Rings fan, want to see this happen. I don't know if he's a Wheel of Time fan, but if he likes Lord of the Rings, he must like fantasy, so that must be one of the things they were doing. Now, we're going to get into something else here, and this is more in a speculation territory than anything else. My guess, and this is a terrible thing to say, but my guess is the Wheel of Time was a trial run for the Lord of the Rings. Everything they did, from the filming to the VFX to the marketing to the writer's room to doing everything else, they like engaging with the fandom, all seemed to be in preparation for Lord of the Rings, because Amazon learned a lot of lessons from doing this, and they're basically taking all of the feedback that we, the fans, and other non-fans of the property gave Amazon, and they're implementing it for Lord of the Rings. Earlier promotions, bigger budgets, there's all kinds of stuff that we talked about that they're doing there. Not only are they implementing a lot of the suggestions we had for Wheel of Time into Lord of the Rings, they're also sharing crew. Now, there's a bunch of people that worked on Wheel of Time that are now currently working on Lord of the Rings. That in itself is not a huge shock to me because Amazon does that. So Carnival Row is another fantasy type show that Amazon puts on. A lot of the cast, maybe not the cast, a lot of the crew, we'll say, in production team and things like that, kind of bounced back and forth, and they did different things. So there were execs working on both. There were crew that were working on both. That's not a huge shock. But what kind of blew me away a little bit was Wayne Yip directed 2 episodes in The Wheel of Time, and they were arguably 2 of the better episodes, in my opinion. A Place of Safety and The Dragon Reborn. He did a fantastic job, and he gained a ton of experience working in a fantasy-type medium. Wayne Yip is now directing 4 episodes of The Lord of the Rings. You can't tell me they did that on purpose. They took him over to put him in Wheel of Time to give him experience, and then shunted him over to their main project. Now, a lot of this is coming off like whining and complaining, like, why isn't Wheel of Time getting all of this love? Of course it is. I'm a huge Wheel of Time fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan too, don't get me wrong, but maybe not quite near as big, obviously. I don't have any Lord of the Rings tattoos, and I haven't read the Lord of the Rings series 60 times like I have the Wheel of Time. But as a fan, it's kind of disheartening to see them putting all of this behind Lord of the Rings and nothing behind Wheel of Time. Now, the last thing I want to mention here, and this is something else, is we know that the Season 2 of Wheel of Time is going to be delayed till after Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings comes out September 2nd. The first 2 episodes are an hour and a half, which is another thing that we complained a whole lot about the show for the Wheel of Time. The fact that we wanted them to be longer and more more time, basically. Now, to be fair, those complaints happened a long time ago, and then they resurfaced after the show aired, so I can't say that Lord of the Rings people implemented longer time frames just because we talked about it. But it's certainly not going to hurt them when they have 2 hour-and-a-half episodes to open the series as a prologue. If Wheel of Time did that, the show would have been much better, in my opinion. Again, does it come off as a little complaining on my part and a little whiny? Absolutely it does. And in fact, I think a lot of the Lord of the Rings fandom have been saying that about the Wheel of Time fandom on Twitter and other social media platforms. Of course they have. We're going to be a little jealous. It's just the way it is. I want to see Lord of the Rings succeed. I want to see it be absolutely fantastic, because the more fantasy shows that Amazon puts out to a higher caliber, the more experience the company as a whole gets, the better off Wheel of Time is going to be. The show can only improve from here. It can only get better for the next few seasons. We already have rumors of it being basically renewed for up to 4 seasons. Now, they're kind of shoddy rumors because Deadline misworded some things in an article, but I have faith and hope that we're going to get at least 3 seasons, because I know for sure that some of the actors are contracted for the 3rd season right now. So if they take the lessons learned from this when they're filming season 3, maybe we'll get that. So when are we going to get season 2 of Wheel of Time? Well, like I said, it's delayed because of Lord of the Rings, and a lot of people are very hopeful that it'll be November. Rafe Judkins has come out in an interview and very bluntly said it'll be much, much longer than you expect. And I myself have reached out to a ton of different people, and every answer I've gotten on this has been the same thing. 2022 is pretty much not going to happen. 2023 is way more likely. First quarter is iffy. Second quarter is pretty much the latest. So we will get it sometime in the first 6 months of next year at the latest. Doesn't mean to say they don't change things between now and then. That's a very, very long time. But you're looking at approximately 18 months between the end of Season 1 and the release of Season 2. That's a long time. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe, just maybe, that changes a bit. What I'm hearing is incorrect. Or they do something to fill the gaps. Either way, that's my comparison to Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time. There are a dozen other things I can talk about here, but the video is already 20-ish minutes long. I'm pretty long-winded when it comes to this, so I'm not going to mention them all today. Again, if you like Lord of the Rings and you want to hear Lord of the Rings stuff, subscribe to my other channel. I think the first few videos are going to focus on Vox Machina, which is absolutely fantastic. Amazon actually contacted me, and I've been doing a little advertising for them. If you haven't noticed, I put it on my social media, on my Twitter, and on my Instagram account a couple times. That's because I'm actually advertising Vox Machina for them, which is really a little different. They won't work with me for Wheel of Time, but however, that stuff's fine. So there you go. So if you like that sort of thing, check out my other channel. Make sure you subscribe there. I'm going to put out all kinds of videos there. All right. Thank you all so very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.